Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to our seminar. Today we're joined by Bruce Richards, Associate Professor of Animal Science, who's going to be talking to us about a course that he developed, Spanish for Agriculture, and how he came to that. So, Bruce, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Melissa, and thanks, Cynthia and Christine, for being here. Hopefully we'll get some others join later on, or maybe some people will watch it later. A couple of reasons why I thought this presentation might be beneficial. One was to just let some of the faculty know about the course in case they had students that were interested in it, but also for any faculty that are thinking about developing a course, just to give them a little idea of the process that I went through of developing this course, taking it from an idea to an actual course that was approved by the curriculum committee. And so maybe there'll be some junior faculty later on that will join us or listen later on. So one of the things we do in the animal science department with our seniors is in our senior seminar class, we require them to do a practice job interview. And so students will submit their resumes a week before their practice job interviews, and we get a chance to read over them. And then we do a practice interview with them. And a few years ago, one of our students, Noah Gesfert, some of you may recognize Noah, submitted his resume, and he included in his resume that he spoke some Spanish. And so when we did the practice job interview, I asked him, ¿Cómo está tu español? And Noah looked at me and was like, huh? And I said, ¿Cómo está tu español? And he didn't know how to answer. So later on in my recommendations, I recommended that maybe he shouldn't have on his resume that he spoke Spanish if he wasn't comfortable answering that type of a question. But then Noah asked me, he said, well, Dr. Richards, why don't we have a Spanish for Agriculture class at Del Valle? And I thought that was a good question. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 23.1% of the laborers in agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting were Hispanic or Latino in 2014. So a large portion of our students' coworkers or employees will be non-native English speakers and often Spanish speakers. And as I thought about it, there's two reasons why I thought I might be an appropriate person to develop such a course. Number one is I am fluent in Spanish, 2 years in Spanish, and became fairly fluent speaking Spanish. And the second thing that I thought I had going for me was that I do have experience working on the farm and with agriculture terminology, which would be what the students would be interested in learning. But I did have a couple of concerns as well with taking this course on. As I said, I learned my Spanish in Spain, and most of the people that our students work with tend to be from Mexico or other Latin American countries, where they have a little bit different dialects, some different terminology for various terms on the farm. And my other concern was that while I was in Spain, I spent most of my time in the city and didn't get a chance to be out on the farm a lot. And so my vocabulary wasn't rich in farm vocabulary. But recognizing my weaknesses, I went forward and decided to give it a try. So the next semester, before Noah graduated, I offered a 1-credit 9900 course, Spanish for Agriculture, where we met once a week. And during that course, I got feedback from the students, tried a few different things, had my department chair come in and observe me, and also gave me some really good recommendations for developing the course. And I followed that up by developing a 3-credit 9900 course. And after that, using again some more feedback from students and from others, I was able to get it approved as a permanent course in the fall of 2017 as Spanish for Agriculture. So some of my objectives in developing the course is that I wanted to focus on helping the students develop vocabulary. And I wanted them to be able to have a conversation with a coworker in Spanish. And kind of one of the impetuses for this, for these first two objectives is that I had taken students on a tour of a large dairy farm out in Lebanon County. And while we were there, as the farm manager was giving us a tour, one of his employees came up and was talking to him, and they had a conversation in Spanish. And the grammar wasn't quite right, but they still communicated and they were able to understand each other. And so I felt like I could focus on vocabulary and allow the students, like I say, to be able to have a conversation even if the grammar wasn't perfect. One of the things that I did learn over time, though, is that if I had students in the class that didn't have a Spanish background, they did need some grammar and needs instruction on forming sentences, because that is an important part of language. So I do include some grammar, but it's not heavily emphasized in the course. And also another objective I had is that I wanted to create an experience in which any ag student could have a good learning experience, whether they were in animal science or whether they were in plant science or landscape architecture or whatever it may be. And fifth objective to the course was to increase cultural awareness of the students of various cultures where they speak Spanish. So I require the students to, each week we have a topic that we are covering. I try and keep them as broad topics so that they can bring in their own vocabulary list that's related to the topic, but can be also specific to their field of interest. So for example, tools or herramientas, they can bring in a list of 10 tools and the words for them in Spanish. I also provide my own list to the students, and then I divide the students up into groups, and they share their list of 10 words with the group and then pick 10 words to put on the board. Depending on the size of the class, then I'll have 30 or 40 words on the whiteboard that will go over together as a class and practice pronouncing these words. And then I have the students try and see if they can figure out what the words mean. One of the things I've been careful about is not to tell the students they're wrong if they have a word, because I recognize that different countries will have different dialects and different words or different ways of describing things. And so while I won't tell them they're wrong, I will tell them, well, I would say this word and interpret it differently than they would. Just a second. We're having basement flooding issues. So anyway, but hopefully we'll get through this. All right, so the students pick their words and then we share them as a class, and then they can develop their vocabulary lists based on what they're interested in. For the midterm and final presentations, we have a prompt. The requirement is for students to get up in front of the class for 2.5 minutes, and for the final, they're required to speak for 5 minutes. So the prompt for the midterm is that they tell us about their plants or their animals. They tell us where they are, how many they have, what the animals or plants do, how they take care of them during different times of the year, what their chores are during the week to take care of their plants or animals, like taking care of them, which tools they use, the colors of the plants or animals, and what they need in order to grow the animals. For the final, and by the way, I should mention that I developed this prompt with Elizabeth Skenzik and Ed Sambrisky. They are both native Spanish speakers, and so they've helped me with the course development. But also when I do the midterm assessment and the final assessment, they come in and help me listen to the students and give feedback to the students as well on their pronunciation. I talk about a current hot topic in agriculture in Spanish for 5 minutes. And after the presentation, the students did pretty well. But in talking to Ed and Elizabeth afterwards, they were kind of like, you know, that's probably a bit for 5 minutes. And so we kind of think that the next time we do it, we'll have them teach a topic in agriculture, teach us how to do something, maybe kind of not be quite so, because doing a hot topic requires fairly advanced vocabulary. And so we're going to back that off a little bit for the final. Another part of the course is that we ask the students to give a tour to their classmates. As I mentioned, we tend to get a nice variety of students in the course from across plant sciences and animal sciences and landscape architecture. So if the students are familiar with the greenhouses or with the putting green or with the equine barn or the livestock farm, they'll come give they'll give a tour of the part of campus that they're most interested in to the other students in Spanish and get to practice their Spanish skills that way. I also emphasize giving instructions. Learning activities we do is I bring in materials and have the students create something in a group, and then they have to give instructions to another group in Spanish on how to recreate what they've created. And as you can see from the pictures, there's this one's supposed to be a flower, and their group kind of got a, looks like a ride at an amusement park or something. But anyway, they did pretty good. Then we also have an activity day where, again, in groups, the students come up with instructions for some type of activity that the class can participate in. And they give the instructions to the class, give the rules in Spanish, and have the classmates follow. Another fun day in class. At the very end of the semester, we have a Spanish lunch where I allow the students to bring in dishes from various Spanish-speaking countries. I usually make a dish. This is the paella I made from Spain, and we share it. And I also invite administration, faculty, and staff that I know of that speak Spanish to come in. And the goal is to have conversations in Spanish while we eat Spanish food. One of the things I still need to work on is enforcing Spanish speaking, because of course students revert to speaking English a lot of the time, but it's still a good experience for them, and again helps them with the cultural piece of the course as well. Gauging student success, it's a little bit challenging. Up till now, I haven't had any prereqs on the course. We don't have a consistent Spanish 1 course that's offered at Del Val, and so I don't want to limit the students from taking it, but I get some students that have a background in Spanish and some students that don't know anything about Spanish. And so it's been a little bit challenging that way as far as assessing the students and assessing what they are learning. We can't expect them to be fluent Spanish speakers after a 1-semester course. But I did have some good feedback. A few months ago, my dad sent me this picture. He was on a large dairy farm. Graduate, and so this is a picture of my dad with Nicole, and Nicole's working on a dairy farm where she has a lot of coworkers who are Spanish speakers, and she is getting to practice her Spanish, and said that the Spanish for Agriculture class came in handy. So that was good feedback. Some questions. I presented on this course last year at the North American Colleges and Teachers of Agriculture Conference, and a couple of questions that came up were, could Spanish for Agriculture be taught as an online course, which I thought was an interesting idea. At the time, I didn't know what tools Del Val had for teaching online. Since then, I've been educated on that fairly quickly, and so I do think it's an option in the future. I actually considered it for this fall, but we didn't make enrollment for the course this fall. Part of that's because I was planning to ask. A question that came up was, could we develop a cultural immersion experience for the Spanish for Agriculture class? And I thought that was a really interesting idea. And while I was at the conference, I actually had 3 different faculty from other universities approach me and tell me about experiences they have that they take their students on, one to Costa Rica, one to Peru, and one to Puerto Rico. And so I followed up after the conference with all three of them, and only one of them got back to me, and he was actually the one I was most interested in, so that was worked out good, but it's to Costa Rica. And so last January, I joined him and his students in Costa Rica. His name's Dr. Wingenbach from Texas A&M University. He went, and then also this is actually a graduate student, David Wall, in publicity, and became a graduate student. So anyway, he went along with us. And the Texas A&M has a center called the Solstice Center that they own down in Costa Rica, where we stayed at. Maybe I won't take time to show the video, but the Solstice Center is located right in the middle of the rainforest. And from the Solstice Center. So it's a pretty neat place to be located. Dr. Wingenbach was teaching courses in ag leadership, actually, and development. And so we visited several farms while we were there. I wasn't real impressed with this dairy because this actually doesn't actually represent the dairy industry in Costa Rica. Most of their cows are milked with machines and are more what we would think of as modern looking in the United States. This was just a place where they make mozzarella cheese, and they just had this cow as kind of a petting zoo type cow. But anyway, this farm was neat to visit. We learned about making cheese. But then after that, we walked around the farm, and he harvested fruits right off the trees for us, or off the plants for us to try. So we tried star fruit. We tried coconut juice right off the tree. I learned that you drink coconut juice when the coconut's green, and then you eat the meat when it's brown. And we also tried sugar cane, which was my favorite thing we tried, where you take a bite of this fibrous material and chew it, and the juice comes out, and you're left with the fibrous portion. We also visited a cocoa farm where they raised the cocoa beans for chocolate, and visited another farm. This is Roberto. Roberto had his own small farm, hobby farm type thing, but he was also a night guard at the Solstice Center. And so I was able to talk to him on multiple occasions, practice my Spanish with him. But I also learned about his experience as a farmer in Costa Rica, learned about some of the forages that he feeds to his animals, and kind of the nutrition and feeding aspect of how they approach animal nutrition in Puerto Rico. So it wasn't good just for my Spanish course, but also for nutrition as well. We also visited a fish farm. The students got to go fishing. Of course, we didn't use fishing poles, but we used a large net and actually got down in the water and collected the fish. I got in the water as well and helped with the fishing. And then afterwards, we had a nice fish fry and pretty big sized fish. So it was a great experience. It wasn't all just work and visiting farms. We also went ziplining and spent a couple of days at the beach as well. This is the group that I went with, and in front of the Volcan Arenal, or the volcano that's down there in Costa Rica. It's a beautiful area down there. Had a great time. So some of the things that came from my experience is that by the end of the trip I was in, I learned about animal feeding and nutrition in another country, and I developed an outline for a culture immersion experience for Spanish for agriculture. And like I mentioned, I was working on this, and so my plan was to come back from spring break and advertise that I was teaching Spanish for agriculture in the fall, and in next January, I'd take a group of students down to Costa Rica for the same experience. Of course, I would be emphasizing them practicing their Spanish skills. And the other thing the Solstice Center has is some classrooms. So 2-week stay. Of course, that's been postponed for the immediate future, but we'll hopefully see something come of that in the future. Any questions or any discussion? Sorry, I kind of went through that quickly. We having some commotion at our house, but.
Hi, Bruce. Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia.
That's a nice course. I really like it.
Thank you.
Ever thought about having some of the Spanish-speaking workers come to the class and sort of explain their cultural background and, you know, what brought them to the U.S. and, you know, different things like that. So giving the students the experience of the Spanish-speaking workers.
Sorry, you cut out right at the beginning. So let me see if I understood your question. Did you ask about bringing workers into the class?
Yes, Spanish-speaking workers. So from, I would assume that most of them would be from Latin America.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that.
I process swine over there, and they have a lot of Spanish speakers, and I asked them about the opportunity to either bring our students over there or have some of their workers come over to the school, and I didn't get a response, so I'm not sure. I think they're a bit uncomfortable with that, but that is something I probably should. The part of the problem is that the people that I have the closest contacts with are over in Lebanon and Lancaster County, and that's kind of a little bit far to have their coworkers come, and the Spanish-speaking people in our area tend to be, I wonder if Doug Lindy could help me get a hold of landscape architecture peoples or that in our area. That is a great idea and something I need to follow up on more.
Yeah, or maybe the students, if you found enough Spanish-speaking workers or farms that had them that were interested, the students could follow them for a day, you know? So they really get sort of immersed in, you know, using the Spanish for a day under that situation. I don't know.
Right.
That's an idea.
No, that's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you.
I like the course.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's been fun. And one thing I really like about it too is because nutrition's pretty scientific, this is the way it is. Spanish, we're trying to get to think about different approaches to teaching and try some different ideas. So it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure the students like it too.
Yeah, yeah.
So Bruce, what's their answer now after the class when you ask them how their Spanish is in Spanish?
Yeah, that's a great question. They can have a conversation at least station. Again, it depends on the students. Some of them, especially students that have some Spanish background, they are pretty comfortable having conversations and can talk about ag terminology and that. I still have a couple students though that if they don't have any Spanish background, they still struggle with it at the end of the semester.
They probably don't put it on the resume that they can speak Spanish.
Right.
I think it's really neat because of how our students really respond to learning that they see the application of right away. So like just taking a Spanish class in high school probably doesn't show them like how and where and when they need to use it. And our students are in particular really like practice, you know, like they like to see a reason. And I think that's such a cool context for learning a language.
Right. Yeah, like I say, I think the students are interested in learning the vocabulary, but there is a reason why we do grammar as well. Like I realized that you can't just totally skip it either.
I do think adding that cultural immersion experience is a fantastic idea to add in there. And of course, the timing of, you know, a pandemic doesn't help. But having taken students abroad in Costa Rica with the tropical ecology class, just as me as the chaperone, trying to add chemistry here and there. And then taking my own course, which Cynthia's joined me on, it's such a neat experience, not only for the students, but even as a faculty member, you just start thinking like, what else can we do? How can we change this? What are they getting out of this? What should I be adding into it? It does allow for that course development and those ideas to just kind of run rampant, I guess.
Yeah.
So definitely something I think is fantastic to continue to pursue, and especially to force the students to practice.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So far, that's been the best part of 2020. Was those 2 weeks. I shouldn't say that too loud. No, I've had a good time with my family, but it was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
You know, and you could go more places in just
Right.
Like you could go to Spain, you could go anywhere.
Oh yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That's right.
Where do I want to go next?
Right. Well, that's the thing is, I'm like, well, I've been to Costa Rica now. We should plan a different trip now.
Yes, exactly.
Nah, I did love Costa Rica though. I'd be glad to take students back there.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have to limit it either. Very good. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
That was very nice.
And especially thank you to Bruce. We have another seminar coming up on Thursday, so hopefully people can join us for that. And until then, of course, stay safe, everyone. Bruce will let you get to whatever crazy's going on with the basement. So
we had it waterproofed last summer. We have 2 sump pumps. I don't know why we're still flooding.
Oh no. Well, hopefully it's a drier afternoon for
I don't know, but we'll see.
Household, but everyone out there today. So
This rain today is like a